Hello, I'm Thomas Logan, and this is Accessibility New York City Meetup, the 2025 edition. Thank you everyone for being here tonight for our presentation, Audio Description and Advertising. One quick celebration, we are 11 years old today, so it's our birthday. I cooked this virtual cake for us. It doesn't quite have 11 candles, but yes, we've been doing this meetup every month in New York City for 11 years, and we're really happy to have you all here, whether it's your first meetup or you've been with us for many meetups in the past. We always seek to have interesting presentations around accessibility and access for people with disabilities, and we're really open to keeping our presentations very diverse and different. Speaking of that, I want to do a little topical news and a throwback to a presentation we had a couple of years ago. In March of 2022, we had a presentation from Adrian Roselli talking about overlays underwhelm. And so for people familiar in the technology side of the accessibility world, this had been a big problem area, this idea that artificial intelligence is going to solve everything. And there were these overlays that are promising that just with one line of code, they can fix your website. And so a couple years ago, we had a great presentation from Adrian Roselli talking about how this is not something that actually works. This is basically snake oil. And our president for 2025 just announced a few days ago, January 3rd, the FTC ordered an online marketer to pay $1 million for deceptive claims that its AI product could make websites compliant with accessibility guidelines. So again, another thing I think to applaud, this is a milestone in a way that it does recognize, or in my mind, it's the government demonstrating that the idea that people can say AI just solves accessibility. This is something that you'll be able to point to definitively that the Federal Trade Commission actually made a ruling that it was fraud to be telling people that with one line of code, you can just make your website accessible. I think everyone here in the room knows that, but now for people that might not know that, you have something you can point them to that's very concrete about that. I think that's great. We want to say thank you to all of our sponsors for enabling our events. So we put on this event with the help of our sponsors. We have Aira, an app that connects people who are blind or low vision to professional visual interpreters for secure access to visual information anytime, anywhere. ArtTouch, who helps companies design and develop lovable and accessible technology. AKQA, who is the space we are in here in Soho, New York City. They are a design agency. We have DQ, a leader in digital accessibility tools, services, and training. Equal Entry, my company, which is a digital accessibility consultancy focused on results. Evinced, the software for accessible development. And Fable, an accessibility platform powered by people with disabilities. We also want to say thank you to Jolly McPhee in the back from the Internet Society of New York's Accessibility Special Interest Group. Jolly's been with us for the 11 years of our meetup, and we have always had our meetup available to participate both online and in person. So if you would ever like to participate in one of our events and you're unable to make it in person, you can always join us on YouTube and you're able to ask questions and participate. And we thank Jolly for enabling that for us. We also caption all of our events up here on the screen. We have a human captioner, Mirabai Knight. Thank you so much for providing the captions for our events. And we've also been working with Mirabai for all 11 years of our meetup. My other co-organizers, Ben Ogilvy and Cameron Cundiff, have helped put on this event. And we want to thank Merrill Evans, who is on the YouTube stream answering questions. Finally, you will see up on the screen, we have American Sign Language interpretation for our events. This is generously provided by Aira. And we'd like you to know that if you would like to use Aira for audio description, as we mentioned, they provide services for ASL and audio description. You can download the app, the Aira Explorer app on Apple or Google App Stores, and you can use the access offer A11yNYC to get audio description for our event. With that, I'm now going to hand it over to, we have two presenters tonight. One presenter, Liz, who is here joining us remotely and who will also be presenting. And we have Eric with us here in the room from the International Digital Center. Thank you very much for being here, and take it away.
Oh, thank you, Thomas. And thank you, everybody, for braving the cold to come out here, because it was brisk coming across town here to get here. So as Thomas said, my name is Eric Wickstrom. I'm the head of audio production for International Digital Center, known as IDC, if you're hearing us on any audio description tracks. That's my main focus the last 12, 13 years of my life is audio description for all sorts of providers, all sorts of networks and streaming services. You've probably heard our work if you listen to AD somewhere. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Ben Ogilvy reached out to me on LinkedIn. He said, hey, you want to come talk about advertising and audio description? And I said, we don't really do much with it. And it's been like a real thing that's stuck for me the last 12, 13 years. It's annoyed the heck out of me. And he said, well, then come rant about it. And I said, that's good. So that's what we've done. So I brought Liz in here to help me with this. We put together this presentation to kind of talk a little bit about advertising and where we think that there's some opportunities and things that I've just been kind of dumbfounded about the last 12, 13 years about why we're not using this more as a tool to reach consumers from the blind and low vision community. So with that, Liz.
Yeah, hi. My name is Liz Gutman, and I'm the head audio description writer at International Digital Center, IDC, in New York. I'm a white woman in my early 40s. I have brown hair with bangs, and I wear glasses. I've been writing AD since 2018. I've been training others to write AD since 2021 and hosting a podcast about accessibility called, cover your ears, Access Fuckery, since this year, where each episode I invite a member of the disability community to vent about failures in accessibility and how it impacts them. So increasing accessibility across the board, like in advertising where it's not really considered that much at all currently, is something that's very close to my heart. It impacts my friends, and even if you don't know it, it impacts your friends too. So I was really excited when Eric asked me to help do this presentation with him.
All right. So a little bit, again, I mentioned I've been doing this for 12 or 13 years. I started years ago. I was working for USA Network, one of the major cable networks, and the FCC came in and they just mandated we start doing audio description. And everybody said, what's audio description? And that was a fair question. Nobody knew what it was. It was kind of a brave new world. And this is kind of a solution that people throw out there. Well, the government should get involved. Not always the best results for numerous reasons. With this kind of stuff, they came in, they said, all right, first it was only the top 5 cable networks that had to do audio description. And then it grew to the top 10. And then what they've done is instead of just adding, they've allowed networks to drop out. So if you drop out of that top 10 rating, you're no longer mandated to offer AD. So you'd hope that networks say, oh, goodness of my heart, we'll keep doing it. No, the money it goes elsewhere, we find. And then they started mandating that it only happens in primetime hours. So that was a drawback also because, people are home during the day with visual impairment and they're not getting any AD. So it kind of had the effect of getting a lot of AD created, but like everything, it was kind of a rush to do it because they gave everybody like 5 or 6 months with these threatens of big fines and everything. So everybody kind of rushed to get it done as quickly as possible. And as you can imagine, the quality was not particularly great. And that's when we started seeing, that's when I started questioning why we were spending a lot of money back then, a lot of money to make audio description. And we were putting it on air in prime time and all other times. And then the commercials would start and it would just go away. And that made no sense to me. Why we were targeting, blind and low vision viewers and not the advertisers weren't coming along. And I thought there was a lot of opportunity there, and I still do, where if we could sell advertising space in AD tracks, I think more people would want to make them and air them, because like we know, the answer to all your questions in life is money. So, and I understand that companies are in the business to make money, advertisers want to make money, they want to reach the biggest group of people and audience they can. And so I think there is a way forward with this stuff outside of just prime time and only these top 10 networks, because there's still there's a lot less AD generally than there should be. And then what happened was, once the streaming services launched, as you guys all know in the room, if you follow accessibility, lawsuits happened and everybody got shamed into coming along and creating AD. Then we saw the same thing. Everybody just kind of rushed in to create as much as possible, as fast as possible to get these annoying, disability advocates off their back. And so we got a vast amount of very average to poor offerings. So while there is great work happening out there, I feel like also if advertisers were linked to this work, they'd want that work, the level of that work to come up quite a bit because they don't want to be associated with shoddy products. So that's, where I think there's a lot of opportunity, and hopefully going forward, we can see some of that change. And then Liz.
There are millions of blind and low vision people in North America. There are more every year as people get older, as the population ages and lose their vision for whatever reason. Those people all want access to advertising too. It's not a gift or a charity cause. As Eric said, money solves all your problems. Why would you not access this audience who also has money and also wants to spend it? It just doesn't make any sense. To get in some numbers, so this is from the CDC. So, it's tough to get exact numbers on blindness and low vision or visual impairment, as the CDC and a lot of government entities call it, for various reasons. Blindness is a spectrum, and often the data are years behind what's actually happening now. But according to the CDC, about 12 million people 40 years and older in the United States have vision impairment. This includes 1 million with blindness. As of 2012, so already 13 years ago, 4.2 million Americans aged 40 plus have uncorrectable vision impairment. This number is predicted to more than double by 2050. So again, this is not a small number of people. About 7% of children under 18 have a diagnosed eye or vision condition. It's about 5 million. And nearly 3% of children under 18 have blindness or vision impairment. So defined as having trouble seeing even when wearing glasses or other corrective lenses. So again, this is a big audience and it's only going to grow.
So yep, there it is. So I'm going to play an ad here. I asked Ben to get me an ad, and I'm going to play it for the room. And at the end, I'd like you guys to just guess what this is advertising. So we stripped the video out of this. There's no dialogue. You'll hear it. It's just some sound effects. And if you're a blind or low vision person, imagine watching television. This is the experience you're going to get for this ad. So anybody want to guess? Yes, sir. Second row. Yes.
A car.
Incorrect. Yes, ma'am.
iPhone.
What is it?
iPhone.
Not an iPhone.
Sprite.
It's Sprite, no. No. So, we debated, okay, let's play 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I said, no, let's play the whole thing. Because I want to, again, the experience, that's, if you're blind, low vision at home, they're just sitting through that whole thing, no idea what's going on. So we created AD for this ad as an example. So no, it's not cars, it's not Sprite, it's not Apple. Let's try the accessibility version of it.
I actually just want to jump in really quickly.
This is a pair of Levi's. A fold of dark denim comes to rest on a huge folded stack. They're made to last. A copper rivet is punched in. A black man with a neat afro walks out of a shop wearing a brand new pair of dark Levi's. He tucks his wallet into his back pocket as he moves along a 70s city sidewalk, then through a forest. He disco dances, rides a motorcycle, and pulls off the jeans while canoodling with a woman in a bedroom. He tosses them away. Cut to a slender white woman by a pool who pulls on the slightly faded jeans over her swimsuit. She rolls up the cuffs and goes dancing and roller skating and plays pinball. A thin white man with a puppy wears the same jeans, now weathered with a faint wallet outline. He washes them in a river. They dry on a line. A young brown-skinned man irons on an alien patch. He skateboards. The knee gets ripped. A white brunette pulls open the bottom side seams. She rides a horse, jogs up a staircase, and jumps in a river. So you can wear them longer. The pale ripped jeans are hung on a thrift store rack. A stylish young copper-skinned woman eyes them. And wastes less. She leaves the store wearing the jeans and moves along a modern city sidewalk. Her phone fits perfectly in the outline of the first man's wallet. Buy better, wear longer, live in Levi's.
So yeah, how would you have any idea what that was? And if you're Levi's, why wouldn't, I've met a lot of blind people in my job. One thing they all have in common, they all wear jeans. I've met every one of them owns a pair of jeans. So why aren't we targeting this ad to that community? Liz, I cut you off there as you were trying to jump in. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to mention that since I'm remote, we didn't actually hear the audio from the spot the first time when it was played without video. But so just for folks watching this back later or whoever's attending remotely, that ad by itself without the AD is just a bunch of sounds. There's kind of like a fabric rustling, but you don't know it's fabric necessarily. There's party sounds, there's clackety clacking of what we know are wheels now, there's water, there's rain. It's all very confusing. So I just kind of wanted to underline that after the fact. So like we were talking about leaving money, I'll let Liz take this one, but like I was just touching on, we're literally leaving money on the table if you're advertising. Yeah, exactly. If you were blind and this ad came on and you're like, well, I would really like to know what that's about. I'm on the edge of my seat. What's the answer to this mystery? If you wanted to complain to the company airing this ad for not making it accessible, how would you go about it? If you were at home by yourself, where do you start? And to that end, why on earth would any company expect loyalty from a consumer that they're not even considering in their marketing efforts? Blind people have money to spend. They are loyal consumers, and they're part of families that are also loyal. Some won't watch anything, whether their blind loved one is with them or not, if it doesn't have AD. And why not? A lack of accessibility signals a lack of interest, of care, of acknowledgement. So if you're ignoring an entire segment of potential consumers, why would they want to buy from you? And how would they even know to do so if you're not making your advertising accessible?
Yeah, and that's a giant pet peeve of mine for years now, is when, first of all, we'll get into there's millions and millions and millions of people we're talking about this affecting. But I've heard that answer from people when I pitched this to like a car company, let's say, and we'll get more into it as we go through the deck. Why don't you do AD for this car commercial? Blind people don't drive. Okay, blind people ride in cars. Either families buy cars. Why not target the family? That's something that the family would recognize, to Liz's point. They're watching AD at home together, a commercial comes on for a car company, and they're making the effort to actually target and to acknowledge and to talk to those consumers. Yes, I think when it comes time to buy that car, you might keep that in mind because this company actually cared enough to try to sell to you and talk to you and address your needs as well as a consumer. So it's a weird thing when we say there's 8 million blind people. Yeah, but if the average family is 3.5, 4 people, we can multiply that by the number, and that's the number of people that these ads and this AD tracks and these things are being utilized by. Additionally, and we'll get into it more as we go, it's not just blind people and low vision people that are utilizing AD. We know that, and we'll talk more of that as we go. Go back. This is one that drives me nuts. The Super Bowl a few years ago. I mean, I just extrapolated some numbers here. The average price of a Super Bowl spot last year for a 30-second spot was $7 million. Okay, no AD tracks, which is a weird thing for me. If you're going to spend $7 million for a 30-second spot, I would want to maximize my reach. I wouldn't want to leave those 5 to 10 million people in the dark, so to speak, and not target them in my advertising. doing some basic math, and this is a range. Don't quote me on this later down the line if you go to a different company and they quote you something more higher or lower. But, for the sake of the argument tonight, I tried to figure out $3,000. I thought was a fair number to be able to do a 1-minute spot and then some cut downs and whatnot. So so let's call it 3,000 across the board. So for the Super Bowl example, $7 million, assuming $3,000, it's 0.043% of that total budget to create that AD track. It costs 2,332 times more to create the commercial than the track would have cost to add to it. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me as a numbers guy. A couple of years ago, this was my favorite, Toyota, God bless them, they made a commercial for a minute-long commercial. They spent $14 million to air it on the Super Bowl. It featured a blind guy. It was like an athlete. He was in the woods. He was running around. The whole commercial was about this blind guy. It was a real inspirational commercial. No AD track. I found that to be an odd choice. To do an AD track for that, using the same math, it was 0.0214% of that 14 million to engage another 8 to 10 million people. And if you're making a commercial about a blind guy, you'd think you'd want to, try to cater to and engage with the blind audience that might be drawn to that commercial. So it's these kind of oversights when you start crunching the numbers at these levels that really is just a head scratcher. It's not, you're going to spend all this money. It was like when certain streaming services were making television episodes that were costing between $4 and $6 million an episode, and they weren't doing audio description. And you do the math on that, the AD track's probably like $2-3 grand, whatever it is. It's less than the craft service table for a day. And so you're spending all this money to make this stuff for television, but you're leaving all these consumers out there, people that are clamoring and want this material. So it's just a little bit more. I like to say cheap gets expensive. And I think that's a big thing here with advertising. Getting a little cheap, and it's costing you a lot of money by not doing it. And then fast food. It's another one. This is America, right? So we know. We spend a lot of money on fast food, and we spend a lot of money marketing fast food. So just doing some basic internet research, it's billions. That's the best I can give you. 3 to 4 billion a year fast food companies spend advertising in this country. McDonald's alone last year spent close to $400 million. I don't hear any AD tracks. I didn't see any outreach. If we assume $100,000 a spot, which I think is high, and let's say they make 50 spots a year, it's $150,000 it would cost a company like McDonald's to do their entire television run of AD. It comes out again, 0.375%. That's 150,000 into 400 million would cost to make things accessible for a blind audience. So again, blind people buy jeans, they eat fast food, they order pizza. Domino's spends $700 million a year to advertise on American, in our ecosystem here in television and media. I keep saying it, I don't know why for such a little bit extra of a buy-in of the budget, we're not thinking about these things. So Liz, so this is consumers, we pulled some stuff off the internet. People are actually responding to both having non-described and described commercials.
Yeah, Eric and I and our whole team at IDC feel really strongly about staying in touch with the community that we serve. We're really active and engaged, having conversations constantly. That's the only way we can get better. So just out of curiosity, I was like, all right, well, let's see if people have, said anything about this. And here are some quotes posted by blind and low vision audience members on social media. 1, I had no idea what the commercial was for or about because it was not audio described. It was clearly a commercial about disability by people with disabilities, and how ridiculous is that it was not audio described so someone who is visually impaired could know what the commercial was for. So stupid and annoying. 2, there is a commercial playing in this market, possibly others, where there is a male voice who says to a child, "What is this?" The child then says, "Your wings." Then Spirit in the Sky starts playing in the background, and a woman's voice says, "Light them up." Can someone describe that commercial? 3, I was wondering if there was any audio description for this Toyota commercial. My friend and I tried to find it, but we were unsuccessful. If there isn't any, that is pretty ironic. If there is, we'd love to be pointed in the right direction. And finally, this commercial needs audio description. So there's not only frustration It's palpable, you can feel it in these comments. But there's also curiosity. There's someone literally describing what they experienced with a commercial and saying, could someone please tell me what this is about? People want to know. They want to be engaged. You know, it is frustrating. I get frustrated talking about it. And all of these comments took me about 5 minutes to find on one social media site. So they're out there.
Yeah. So then there are now, none of this tonight is to say that nobody's doing audio description commercials. There are some companies that have invested some money over the years doing it, nowhere near the level we want to see it at, but it would be disingenuous to say no one's doing it. There are a handful out there. So we pulled some reactions from those things as well.
Yep. 1. Since discovering a few commercials that have been audio described, I find I enjoy a good, cute commercial. 2. I was pleasantly surprised to find a commercial for Downy Unstoppables that had audio description. It was actually pretty cool. It made me realize that I would be more likely to watch commercials if they had audio description. 3. I know some companies describe their commercials. The current Starbucks commercial is described, for example. 4. It is great that MasterCard is making their cards and commercials accessible. And 5. Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is awesome with audio description and even enjoyed a commercial with AD. This should be standard for everything on TV by now. So thankful for this. Happy Thanksgiving all. Smiling face with tear emoji. So note that in both cases, audience are eager to call out brands who are either making that effort to make their advertising accessible or ignoring them completely. Brand loyalty cuts both ways, right? So obviously, if a brand name is never spoken, going back to the Levi's commercial, a blind or low vision user on their own is not going to be able to even know which brand is leaving them out of the conversation. So you could, you know, air quotes, get away with it. But the question is, do you want to be that brand? And I hope the answer is no. But, you know, clients seem to have a lot of reasons to not make their ads accessible. So I would love for Eric, you want to start busting some myths?
Sure. And I think it's worth repeating there is that the call out of the brands. I mean, blind people, God bless them, are not shy with their opinions. This is something I've learned over the last over a decade. You know, they'll let you know when you're doing great. We love that, but they'll really let you know when you're screwing up, which is what keeps us accountable as a company. So, you know, again, if you target them and you work for them and you do things for them, they will recognize it and they will be appreciative if you do it well, or at least give the effort to do it well. So this is a big one we hear a lot, timing. There's no room in our spot to include audio description. Now that can be true. Some of these spots are very, very talky. There's not a lot of room. It's just a constant voiceover or constant person talking. But I've always advocated for, well, why not just create a different commercial and play it on the audio description audio track, you know, that setting. You know, when you go to Netflix or you go to HBO and you go to audio settings, you pick audio description. It just plays that track. When you watch something on television, standard broadcast, and people still do that, it usually lives on the Spanish audio channel, and it plays out there. I don't understand why when the shows play out and the commercials start, the AD goes away. You could certainly just upload a second version of that commercial, either to that Spanish audio for broadcast or to the streaming sites where there's an AD track for the commercial as well. And if you run into a commercial where there's just nonstop talking, where it wouldn't make any sense what that brand is, then write a second commercial that targets blind and low vision consumers. So this was one I asked Ben to get me a sample. This is not the best example, I'll be honest with you, because without AD, you probably could figure out what this commercial is, okay? But this was just an example of a really talky commercial where traditional audio description fitting in between dialogue is probably not going to be an approach that works in any real creative way without cramming it in there and stepping all over the dialogue of the commercial. So I'm going to play the regular commercial, and then I'll show you what I was thinking on the other side.
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're on a boat with the man your man could smell like. What's in your hand? Back at me. I have it. It's an oyster with 2 tickets to that thing you love. Look again. The tickets are now diamond. Anything is possible when your man smells like Old Spice and not a lady. I'm on a horse.
Right. So it's actually pretty audio described as it is, that commercial. But as an example of, now imagine none of that was talking about the product, because we see those commercials all the time. They don't talk about the product. They don't talk about anything. It's abstract. It's meant to be like creative and misleading for the consumer, like into the end. And nobody really, even sighted people sometimes don't know what's going on in the commercial till the tag comes up at the end. So if this was a commercial like that and you wanted to just do an alternate track, you could do something like this.
A handsome, fit black man stands in front of a shower with a towel around his waist. He holds up a bottle of Old Spice body wash and declares himself the man your man could smell like. As he talks in rapid-fire sentences, the towel flies off, revealing white trousers, and the scene changes to the deck of a yacht. He sets down the bottle and holds up an oyster with 2 tickets to That Thing You Love. The oyster turns to cascading diamonds. Then the Old Spice reappears in his hand. The view pulls out to reveal he's sitting on a horse. Text: smell like a man, man. Old Spice.
So when I hear that myth, oh, there's no room for audio description, well, maybe not. So let's get a little more creative. Let's build a separate audio described version of the commercial that can be embedded as a second audio track to play out either on streaming services or broadcast as any other AD track would. I don't understand. It's not that hard when you explain it to wrap your head around, but that seems to be one of those excuses we do hear from potential clients. There's no room. We're not going to bother. Thanks anyway. And then this is the one we hear too, Liz.
Yeah, alignment with messaging is a big one, which is understandable. Clients put a huge premium on their brand assets and they don't want them compromised in any way. So how do you make an ad accessible while maintaining brand integrity? It's actually super easy. So you work with the studio creating the AD. A simple review of the script will enable the language to fit whatever the client wants it to be, and everyone can work together to come up with wording that everyone is happy with before it gets recorded. Also, the advertiser should be keeping in mind the voiceover casting to make sure that not only is the tone and the feel right, but that the talent is culturally appropriate for the spot they're voicing. But yeah, it's all about just considering it from the beginning and working together. Easy.
Right. And then this challenge, clients' resistance to cost. It's cost prohibitive. What's our return on investment? Well, I already took you through some of that math. You can't sell me on a $3 million buy-in, a $7 million buy-in, a $14 million buy-in. You can't make room for a few grand to target another 5 to 10 million consumers. So that doesn't make sense to me. It's like Liz said, it's education, it's talking to clients, having that dialogue, making sure, because the brands are important. We get that. Some of these brands are hundreds of years old plus. We want to make sure we're honoring the brand properly. So that's that's the conversation you have to have. The cost really is minimal, like I broke down. It's not a huge amount of money when you consider the money being spent to create these commercials and then put them on air. As Liz touched on before, communicating with clients about not only the dollars and cents, but just the overall value of being accessible and making yourself an accessible product in that way. And then this is the one too that it doesn't have to be the same VO person. So I think a lot of times when I talk to advertising people, especially they get tied up with, oh, it costs so much because of residuals and hiring professional VO people, celebrities to do these commercials. Well, you don't have to, the AD track can be a completely separate entity. You can hire a different VO person. I would recommend hiring a blind person to do the VO. At IDC, we've worked with over 36 blind professionals in the last couple of years doing voiceover. We work with blind audio engineers. So there's a real opportunity there, and we're not the only ones. We pride ourselves on being one of the companies that really take the most care in doing it, but there's certainly other companies out there doing it as well. So, that would be a nice thing too. You could work with companies to not only create audio description, but also employ people from the blind and low vision community in creating those ads. And that's something you could, that's a message you could sell too, along with your product. I think that's a wonderful initiative people should look into as well. So, and then along with the VO, traditional commercials, and depending on the air and the markets and all this stuff, there's all sorts of residuals like I talked about, and that adds to the cost. But you could do a simple VO buyout, a one-time buyout on a commercial spot, use a non-union VO person. It doesn't, there's ways to make, to make these spots and make them cost effective as well. So you're not, so that idea of the cost should never be the reason not to do it. There's always a conversation to be had. You want to do it well. You want to work with a good company that's going to do a proper job. But the cost is really not prohibitive in any way, in my opinion, when you start getting down to the return on the investment. And then, so yeah, the distribution tactical, that's another one you run into with clients. Oh, we can't do it. Or we have to reconfigure our systems to do it. But we already talked about broadcast, that's a Spanish audio, so that's a separate track. The streaming services, however they're embedding their audio, you're just embedding that separate track on that. If you put on Netflix and you put on audio description, everything you can put on after that defaults to audio description in all the streaming services. You don't have to put it on every time. They do that on purpose. So if you're watching something you have an ad-based subscription, same thing. When the commercials start, AD starts with it. When that's not possible, if all of that stuff's not possible, like right now on YouTube, they've been working on this for years, being able to toggle on and off audio description. And supposedly that's coming, and I'm looking forward to that day. I've been hearing about this for a while, and I do believe they're working on it. So eventually you'll have that option to toggle it on and off. But for now, it would just be open AD. You just have a separate version of that commercial or a separate version of that trailer. We did one for Netflix last year. I should have looked it up before tonight. I meant to. For All the Light We Cannot See, we did a trailer. It was open audio description. We put it on YouTube, and it had, tens of thousands of views. So the money that we spent to make that, I don't know. I wish I looked it up, Liz. I don't know if you could look it up real quick what the final view count is currently, but it was a tremendous return on that small investment to get those eyeballs on it. And then people that aren't particularly into AD find it, oh, check this out. This is interesting. This is different. This sounds pretty cool. So again, I don't buy that money is an issue. It's not that cost prohibitive. And I don't believe technical. We put men on the moon. I can't believe we can't figure out how to put an AD track on a streaming service commercial. I just don't believe that in my heart that that's true. And then here, feedback, Liz.
Yeah, I was just looking up that trailer. It's got currently the audio described trailer for All the Light We Cannot See up on YouTube has 130,000 views. So
yeah,
there you go. Getting feedback. This is something that we do at IDC all of the time. Again, we are a bunch of nice-sighted people working on audio description. That's great. But we need to be hearing from blind and low vision audiences if we're on the right track. Do you like the way we handle this? Do you like the way we did these subtitles, described this person, handled this action? We fought early on to get our name put on our audio tracks because we want people to be able to find us and to know who's doing the audio description so that they can tell us how we're doing. We've made changes to our internal style guide based on feedback that we've gotten from audiences. So it's imperative for anyone doing accessibility that you're constantly, ideally you have folks from the community you're serving working on the project as it goes along. But at the very, very bare minimum, you're getting feedback from the community that you're serving. So how can a client do that? A really easy one is social media. There are communities dedicated to audio description there's a huge one on Facebook. X is a little falling apart right now, but the newer ones like Mammoth and Blue Sky. Every streaming service also has a feedback option that goes directly to people working there. It may or may not be easy to find, and some are better than others with response and calls to action. In our experience, Netflix is very responsive to that type of thing. Others, I hear from a lot of folks that they'll email and never get a response, but there are ways to do that. There are tons of organizations like the ACB, the NFB, the AFB, local organizations, do focus groups. You just kind of need to start thinking about it from that point of view, and those specific needs that this audience will have, and to not be afraid to get constructive feedback, because that's what you need to get in order to make sure that you're not just making the ads accessible, but you're making them accessible in a way that, you know, drives your metrics, that sells the products you want to sell.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you have to care. I mean, it's not, it sounds trite.
You,
but
you do have to care.
that's it. You just have to care and do a minimal amount of effort. It's not that difficult. And like to Liz's point, we want the feedback. Now, luckily, we pride ourselves, we do really good work. I'm very blessed that I have, for my money, the best team in the world doing audio description. They make me look much better than I deserve to. But I always say, like, we don't hide. We want to hear the negative stuff too, if you have it. Because I always joke, if I only wanted to hear positive stuff, I'd call my mother and she would tell me I'm amazing and I'd hang up and I'd go about my day, right? So we say, no, tell us what we're doing wrong, what we could be doing better, and then we'll work on doing that. If something gets messed up in a track, which is, again, not often, you know, knock on wood, but if it does, we want to know so we can fix it. We want to make sure that, you know, we're easily findable and we're accountable for our work, because it's important. We're here to serve the blind and low vision community. That's our role, and we need to be held accountable. So it's just caring a little bit and seeking out the good and the bad so you can do better. And then Liz, the current examples in the industry.
Yeah, Cannes Lions introduced for the first time awards dedicated to accessibility for 2025, expanding the Glass Lion to include disability communities and a subcategory in the Design Lions that awards excellence in image descriptions. Very cool. Some brands like P&G, Unilever, Microsoft are championing accessibility in really cool ways. So, you know, there's progress that's happening, but on the flip side, there can be a kind of separate but equal vibe. Like, for example, some ads will have a described version online, but the ad won't air during broadcast with the audio description. So there was an ad that, I'm not going to call anything out because I don't want to get in trouble, but a friend of mine voiced it, and we were all really excited, and we were like, oh, accessibility, yay. Oops, sorry, got so excited, I'm hitting my mic here. We were all so excited to hear it during the Super Bowl, and during the broadcast, the ad started playing, and there was no audio description. And so it turned out you had to go online and Google it or go to the brand website and find it and listen to it there. And that's kind of an icky way to go about it. It signals, oh, we know you're here, but we don't think you're important enough to put on the main event. Audio description for ads currently can also tend to over-explain or be more subject to the whims of the client than actually giving their audiences what they need and what they want to know. Again, going back to getting feedback, that's why it's necessary. There's not a lot of precedent, so I think maybe that kind of can cause hesitation on the part of advertisers and agencies. You know, no one really knows how to go about it, so in that case, it can kind of feel easier to just not do anything or not bring it up and hope it kind of goes away. But we feel really strongly that we just need to keep making noise about stuff like this, because eventually, you know, that's how you get people to pay attention.
Right. And then looking ahead a little bit here, you know, AI and other emerging technologies, how are they influencing the future of audio description? Oh, yeah, AI. My issue with AI, it seems to be, especially with advertising now, it's solving a problem that doesn't exist, because they're already talking about, oh, it's going to save us money, but you're not doing anything already. So you're not spending. So how are you saving any money? That's the question. And what my issue with AI, and I'm not anti-tech and anti-future and all this stuff, but everything I've so far around AI and synthetic, it's always driven by cost, right? That's always the thing you hear first. It's going to save money. And anytime we're saving money, we're not focusing on the quality. So that's cool. Like, let's have a lot more quantity, but a lot more quantity with no quality is just a big pile of crap is what it is, all right? So that's my issue with AI. It's not focused around, we can crank out so much more content that's going to be amazing and everyone's going to love it. It's just about, let's crank out more. And more for the sake of more it's not great in my experience. And again, this idea that's going to save all this money that they're not spending, if we start talking about the actual price of doing these things, it's not that much, as we've already outlined. So you can hire a real company with real people that are employing real folks from the community and have us do your work, or other companies like us do your work, and spend a small, pitiful amount of your budget to get the work done properly. Or you can keep pushing into AI just to get it done, whatever. But I will say, synthetic, some blind folks, this is not a consensus, but generally we don't hear positive things about synthetic. They don't love it. They like human voice. They feel almost disrespected. We hear that a lot. It's disrespectful to have computer voicing. Again, that's not everybody, but I would say that's the majority of folks. So if you're a brand and you're going to do, your direct competitor is, let's say you're a car company and you're one of the top 5 car companies, and you're going to make a commercial and it's all AI driven, it's synthetic voiced, and then your direct competitor makes one full of beautiful human voices, and you find out that's a blind voice, even better. And which one is the community going to respond to more? That synthetic computer cold voice, or that human voice by a real person? So that's something to consider. Again, cheap gets expensive. I say that all the time. Liz is tired of hearing me say it, but it's something that's just true. In that race to save a couple pennies, you're costing yourself a lot more in the back end, in my opinion. And then the conclusions. Liz, I'll let you conclude us.
Sure. Well, I'll tack on one thing about AI. Because what I've heard from folks in the community is that it's not that AI is bad in all applications. With social media, everyone's a content factory, right? So for things like alt text, for things like TikToks, reading text on screen, kind of workaday stuff like that. I've heard that, sure, great, yes, go for it, no problem. But it's when it gets into storytelling, and ads are telling stories. And again, back to Eric's point, to the spend on producing an ad and carefully controlling all of these brand assets and everything, then why, when you're about to bring it over the finish line, would you just slap on some horrible synthetic voice? It doesn't make any sense, either for the advertiser or for the consumer. Conclusions. So education is key. We hope that this has been educational, or at least interesting. Most lack of accessibility is due to ignorance. And, well, a lot of it is anyway. So there are some dastardly people out there, I guess, but a lot of lack of accessibility is due to ignorance. And most people are excited to be more inclusive when they learn about it. Whenever I tell people what I do for a living, 100% of the time they're like, oh, that's so cool. And if they didn't know it existed, they go, I didn't know that existed. Blind people watch TV? That's wild. So, educate people, tell other people about it, get them excited. Consider accessibility from the beginning of the process. This basically solves everything that we talked about. The cost is nominal. All timing and creative challenges can be addressed during production and woven into the final product. And then everybody's happy. And last, certainly not least, include disabled experts in accessibility creation. If you're not doing this, it's lip service. Again, the absolute bare minimum is to get feedback from the audience that you're making your ads accessible for, but include them in the process. There are so many cool, hilarious, ingenious, disabled, talented folks out there, creatives, who would be great at doing this. So hire them.
Yeah.
Seek them out and hire them.
Yes. And then some further reading and resources. Liz, you want to?
Oh, yeah. Let me just, it's too small on this screen for me to read it.
All right. So
yeah, there's just a couple articles I thought were interesting. There was a survey about accessibility in advertising done by Clearcast, which I think they're in the UK. A really interesting presentation by Liz Jackson that is about it's not specifically about advertising, but it touches on stuff that we talked about today. And just another it's just a bunch of cool stuff that kind of, the circles overlap to form in the center, the Venn diagram, accessibility and advertising. So I think they're all worth checking out.
And then, yeah, if you want to contact us, and talk more about this, we're always happy to sit down. We are geeks for AD. I think that's fair to say. So we love sitting down and chopping this up and talking about it anytime you'd like to. You can contact me at eric.w@idcdigital.com. That's Eric with a C. And then Liz is liz.g@idcdigital.com. And you can find us on LinkedIn, and the DMs are open. And I'm still on X. I don't know how much longer, but I'm still there. You can find me there too, and on Blue Sky. And again, we're not hiding. We want the feedback. If you enjoy this, let us know. If you think we could tweak this and make this better for the next time, let us know that, please, even more importantly. And thanks for having us. If anybody have any questions, we'd love to take a couple.
Thank you so much, Eric and Liz. We're going to open up questions. We have a few questions already from the YouTube stream. We have about 10 minutes for questions here in the room, and then we'll also be able to hang out here in the room and have more of a conversation. But starting off, any questions here in the room for Liz or Eric? Just raise your hand.
Yes.
Bring the mic.
You touched on this at the very end. It seems really obvious to have the agencies involved in this, because they're pitching their services to the clients, and as they pitch them, they can say, for only a little bit more money, we can do all of this, and here's your return on investment, and the marginal cost is probably easily 50% or more profit to them.
Right.
Does all that? When I look at it, I mean, it may be as little as a dozen or more. Maybe a dozen hours added to the overall cost of creating a production.
Right. I reached out to 10 to 12 of the big agencies in New York City. Nobody got back. Just to have a conversation, to your point. Let's just talk. This is not a sales pitch. I was really just trying to gather information for this deck about, are you being approached? Are we having these conversations? If we are, why aren't we doing it? If we are, what's the value you're seeing? Didn't hear back, so I'm going to keep trying. Again, this kind of came together in the last few weeks. I know Ben and I were talking about it for a while, but it kind of, with the holidays and everything, it snuck up on us. But it's something we're going to continue to pursue just for information gathering, because I don't understand it. It's probably been less time than you're thinking. It's the AD track. If you came, this Old Spice, well, not the Old Spice, but the Levi's one we presented tonight. I think, Liz, what did that take? Maybe 2 hours total to put together.
Oh, from start to finish?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Now, we weren't working with the brand. We know if the brand gets involved, they're going to have feedback, and then they're going to have feedback about the feedback, and they're going to have this cut and that. So we get that. So we left our own devices, do what we wanted, and we got a VO person to do it, and we put it together really quick. But 2 hours. So it's not even that much time. If you hire professionals like us and trust us to do our jobs, then you'll probably be in, it won't even be that much time. There's a bit. I was going to say Ben, but that's not Ben. That's Ben. That's Brian.
We're going to take a question from YouTube now. So I think this is a question relating, I guess, the comparison of availability. Which platforms or channels carry, for example, a separate Spanish language audio stream? And, is there more prevalence for multilingual versus audio description?
It depends on the network. So some networks have Spanish audio 1 and 2. When the FCC mandate came in for USA when I was there, we threw all of this, any Spanish was kind of thrown out because we were being threatened and by the government, and we just put all the AD on that the Spanish audio track. So that's pretty much where it lives. I would assume, well, I know for CBS, I would assume for all the broadcasts, you're going to have probably on the Spanish audio channel a mono fold down of that AD track. So that's 2, 4, 5, 7. CW is 11 in this area. I don't know where it is elsewhere in the country. They have, I think, 1 or 2 shows they describe. I know not their whole catalog, but I would assume it lives there as well. So I would guess that's the majority of where that's going.
Thank you. Brian?
Thanks. That was actually the exact question I was going to ask, so we covered it.
Oh, perfect.
All right. Jesse?
So when they charge for advertising on a network, would they charge extra for AD? Like to put the slot in, is there like an extra charge for that?
I'm sure they'll think of that if it gets to that level. Right now, I can't imagine, again, because it's being done such a small level, I can't imagine there's a charge for that. I can't speak completely for that, but when that asset comes in, so like if you're doing, say, NCIS for CBS, which is now, I think it's its 30th year, lost count at this point. But when that asset comes in to the network, it's required to have that track there as well. So it's just part of the deliverable. They're not charging extra to, it has to be there because of the mandate and everything. So if you're doing an ad buy for, tens of thousands of dollars, and you have an AD track on there, I can't imagine that they're going to have much leverage to say, pay us more for this. So that's the other thing too. I don't think it doesn't cost that much to make it. I don't know why it would cost more to air it, but I don't know for sure.
One more question from YouTube. I think this is a technical question. Is there a technology that moves the audio descriptions around text that's open captioned or embedded in the video? I'm thinking like when closed caption text is overlapping text on the screen. So I think they mean for captioning of audio description, if that's a scenario. That's interesting. Liz, have you heard of that? So you're saying if AD is playing, kind of like we did with our videos, the AD is being captioned. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard of that. Liz, have you heard of that?
Yeah, it's rare that it happens because the point that we're at with streamers and broadcasters and everything is it's kind of binary. You either need closed captions or you need audio description. So they haven't really caught up to the fact that having both might be helpful for folks. That would be rad for it to be more widespread. We did the captions for these videos, and Meryl and the fine folks here did the captions for the presentation and everything too. So big ups to them. But it's rare that it happens in general. So I don't know of any specific technology to kind of handle both AD and captions and captioned AD.
And also, it would get a little bit muddy, I think also, especially if it's an action film, yeah, or like something like Bridgerton that Liz writes, where it's these sweeping, long, passages of romance and description. But, in a very talking, a reality show or a stand-up special or something like that, like, it's just going to be, caption on top of caption on top of caption. It's going to get just one big block of text on the screen after a while. So I think for certain things it would be interesting, certainly for action films, where we've done some where like there's 14,000 words in a script. I was reading the other day, we didn't do this one, thank God, but the original Fury Road, I think there was 41 lines of dialogue in the whole film. Oh my God, what a nightmare. So for something like that, yeah, I think that would probably be cool. But generally, it's not really been an ask too much.
Well, we love to ask the tough questions, here at Accessibility New York City. And there was a comment from Meryl that it sounds like Able Player might have some demos of that online, but it's not. It's just like a tool online. Cool. I will take one last question here in the room. Here with Shafiq.
Thank you. So I guess this is a really general, kind of high-level question. And also, you might have addressed it earlier on in the presentation, but I just wanted to maybe ask it again anyway. What would you say is like the most challenging category of content to really do audio descriptions for? I know overarchingly, it's in a lot of cases, it was pretty straightforward if you just put the effort against it, but I just wanted to kind of see what like kind of the edge or the boundary of that was.
The most challenging type of audio description, which generally to do? Or, well, I'll let Liz take that one.
Honestly, I would say comedies that are really talky, because there are often a lot of visual jokes, but there's also a lot of talking happening. And there's just a million decisions you have to make about what to prioritize and when to talk over the dialogue if you need to get a joke, or when you have to let one go, or it's just a million decisions you have to make one after the other.
Great. Well, thank you both for the excellent presentation. One more round of applause for Liz and Eric.
Thanks for having us.
We're going to say thank you again to our Accessibility New York City team. Thank you to Jolly McPhee for production, Mira by Night for captioning, Flip Wilson for the ASL, Cameron Cundiff, Ben Ogilvy, Meryl Evans, and Irina Morozova. And also, you have to hit refresh on this.
That's it. That's the last one.
Refresh. We're live updates. We want to say thank you again to our sponsors, IRA, AKQA, DQ, Equal Entry, Events, and Fable. And lastly, we have our next event coming up, as usual, the first Tuesday of February. So we will be having Tom Camber presenting about older adults and digital inclusion. We hope to see you here in person in Soho, or please join us on YouTube and participate remotely. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining us on this stream, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everybody.
And for everyone here, we can hang out for about 30 minutes in here, so please socialize and, meet each other and get to know everyone. Oh, okay. We will, thank you for that. I'll let Meryl know that, so we post a recap of that. So.